Hi, shalom, friends. There are stories and there are stories, and here is a story. There was once a king with his trusted advisor who was also an astrologist. And not only was he wise and advised the king, but he somehow was able to read the stars and see what was happening and what will happen and give appropriate advice to the king. One morning, he comes to the king very, very upset. "What's wrong, my good advisor? I saw in the stars a catastrophe is going to happen next year in the crop." "Well, what? What are you talking about?" "The next grain crop will be infected with some type of maybe a germ or bacteria, and whoever eats it will have an effect on the mind. People will literally go crazy, and it's going to affect the grain crop. I don't know how to stop it. I mean, we don't have reserves. People are going to have to eat bread, and they're all going to go crazy." So the king is listening in consternation. "So what do you suggest?" He says, "I don't know, but I think there should be at least some normal people. At the very least, you're the king, I'm your advisor. I think we should set aside now last year's grain. So when everyone is really cuckoo, at least me and you will be normal." And the king looked at the advice and said, my good advisor, if we're the only ones that are normal, then we're going to be considered the crazy ones. As you all know, like the science fiction where the inmates in a crazy house, again, italics, will take over the institution, and now the doctors and the nurses are the crazy ones. So we can't do that. So the advisor looks at the king and he says, "So what does His Majesty suggest?" He says, "I suggest that we eat the same grain like everyone else. But we should make a sign on each other's forehead. So when I look at you and you look at me, we will know that we are crazy." End of the story. This is a story from Rabbi Nachum of Breslov. What he meant, I think, is open to interpretation. He was a great tzaddik and a tremendously astute of human nature. So he probably meant much, much more than what I'm going to share with you. But this is what it tells me. There are times when to be the only sane person actually works against your boomerangs. If you're the only one that's sane in a crowd of thousands, then you become the crazy one. And it's almost impossible to get your voice and your reason to be heard and appreciated because they just are crazy. They're not on the same wavelength. But as long as you know that you are rational, even if you follow the crowd, knowing that you're acting irrational, or again, in italics, crazy, that allows you for the possibility of keeping yourself in a straight line, even if you're acting not consistent with your rationality. And number two, who knows? If there's an opening amongst the crazies, perhaps your words will be heard. I think in construction, and you have to have something which is, you have to make sure that a beam or a picture even is exactly even. I think it's called a plumbing line, where you put something on the wall and you see if it is actually straight or not. It used to be, you stand 8 feet away, you say, "Does it look straight to you?" "Oh, it looks very straight to me. Perfect, it's just perfect." And then you hang it up and someone else hangs it, "It's a little crooked, it's a little bit off." And you were so sure that you hung it straight because it looked straight, because you're subjective. But if you put something like a plumber's line over there and you check it, you'll see whether or not your assessment is correct. How do we know when we're acting normal? Or more correctly, how do we know when we're acting rational? Or how do we know in general what is the right way to think? Don't we need something objective above us, something that we could respect and see it as a form of direction, like the North Star? And of course, of the many, many benefits of the Holy Torah, that is one of them. If you want to know what is considered normal, a normal human being, look at the Torah. Look how the Torah defines masculinity, how it defines femininity, how the Torah defines joy, how the Torah defines taking off and resting. Too many of us are living in a world where we follow the herd, and deep down we feel they're crazy, but over time you say, well, maybe I'm the one that's crazy. Maybe it's true what they're saying. Though 10 years ago, or before you attended university, you had a very different view of life. How do you know that your professor and instructor has it right? So if you were brought up that the Jewish people have a beautiful mission to share with this world, and they were chosen to share their talents, and now you're being taught, oh, the chosen people are a bunch of snobby people, and they look down at everyone, and they indulge themselves because, and then suddenly say, one second, which one of these two views is the correct one? You say, well, follow the majority? Would you really follow the majority? Do you think the UN is always right? Do you think popular opinion is always right? Do you think the media is always right? Or even partially right? No, you need something which is a document of truth. Go to the Torah, read the Torah. Right, so, but it's so hard. Well, at least know that the world is crazy. And who knows? Number one, you could save yourself. Number two, if you remind yourself of that power that each individual has, you eventually will be successful. But you'll have to first be convinced that you have the truth. Someone once remarked that what our problem is we don't believe in ourselves as much as God believes in us. I think it's a beautiful statement. No, to believe in yourself, I don't know what that means, believe in yourself. Why should I believe in myself? I know that I'm not perfect, far from it. But if I believe in myself because God believes in me, He empowers me, and He gives me a mission, and He allows me to make my own mistakes, but He promises that I'll get up. If I were to believe in myself the way God believes in me, one person could change the world. So look at your forehead. Are you crazy? If you know you're crazy, then change your life for the better. If you don't have a sign on your forehead and you're following everyone else, I think you should talk to a spiritual leader. Shalom.